It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Yehudit Weisberg, and your maiden name was Van den Berg.
Van den Berg, yes.
And it would be so very, very important and interesting to hear your life story.
Well, not my whole life story, but let's take the part of my parents. I'm a daughter of the Van den Berg family, who was quite known in Holland. They were a very enterprising family. Let's start with two brothers, Simon, Shimon, and Daniel, who started with Unilever and a few other big companies. They started the Unilever by trading butter with the farmers in the neighborhood and in the eastern part of Holland. And it grew out to be a very big company in the world, multinational to today, even though we are not really connected to it anymore. The other brother, Daniel, who is my great-great-grandfather, he started to grind up all kinds of fabrics, and he used it to fill up, let's say, pillows and other things, and that's how he made the parnasse. So when the Nazis came in 40, it found family quite wealthy and influential, and well, everybody knows what the Nazis started doing. Everybody had to give their jewelry, their money, and many didn't. And then they had this shtick, and they had this person called Puttkamer, and Puttkamer was from a family that was originally German, but there were some given nobility in Holland. And he worked together with a bank in Rotterdam, and they said that whoever has family that already has been deported to Westerbork, which was the preliminary to Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz, if you would give certain 30,000 guilders per Jew, they would not be sent on to the death camps. And my father was a very brave man, and he didn't let him be caught. At that point in 1943, already his mother, his father, two sisters, a little niece, a baby, and a brother-in-law were already in Westerbork. They were taken in 1943. And my father started to collect money and jewelry from all over the place. And there was money. And he gave it all to Puttkamer. And within weeks or days, they were sent on to Bergen-Belsen. But it gained time. And it meant he couldn't save his father. His father died on Chof Gimel Adar in March in Bergen-Belsen. But his mother, Sarah was called, she survived, and it's an amazing story because hers is a story of the lost train. Maybe you heard about the lost train. Towards the end of the war, in the beginning of April, the Nazis saw that they are not doing well, and they had in Bergen-Belsen a lot of people there. And they decided to murder them all in Theresienstadt. So they took 3 trains, and every train had 2,500 Jews on board, with a lot of typhus and any other illness you can think of. People were starving. And they sent these trains on the way to go to Theresienstadt to be killed over there, because Bergen-Belsen was not a death camp, it was a different kind of camp. And one train reached Theresienstadt, the other one didn't, and the third one, that is this one, this is the you can see here this is Bergen-Belsen. He was supposed to go to Theresienstadt, south. But instead, because the Allies were bombing the area, he had to go over here. And he came to Treubitz. Treubitz is in eastern Germany. It was a very small town. Very small town, very few people, many left. And suddenly this train pulls in, and already with less people because so many died on the way. But my grandmother was still there with two of her daughters, her son-in-law and her grandchild. She was 49 at the time. And so somebody over there decided that they have to bury the people. And they started a Beis Chaim over there. And amazingly enough, she was buried over there. We even have the location. They made all the graves away. There was another Goyish cemetery over there. So all the Jewish graves facing away from the Goyim, where they were lying. And she was buried in the first line on grave 29, which is a Jewish burial, which is for a Jew in those days like unheard of. And afterwards already had to be put mass graves. Now, one of the remarkable things that happened is that she was reburied in Holland next to her parents and in Nijmegen, which also didn't happen very often because there were so many dead and it was impossible. But I know that both my father and his brother tried very much to find them. I hear the laissez-passer from my father from 1945, September, trying to locate his mother. He had been running over all the 5 years. And remarkably enough, she was relocated from Tröbitz and brought somehow, sometime, to Nijmegen. There are no documents because there was a big fire over there and everything got destroyed. But what is so remarkable is that this little piece of paper. See, this is the paper that tells about the Beis Chaim in Nijmegen. Nijmegen, which had quite a large Jewish community, did not have a Beis Chaim, did not have a cemetery. And there were a few people, you want it again? There were a few people who decided that they need to buy land and make a business, and that was my forefathers. And Mida keneged Mida, she was going to be buried in the place that her parents bought, the great parents had bought. This is my grandmother. This is her.
And who is the other lady in the picture?
That is her daughter, Jet. She was with her in Bergen-Belsen. This is my grandfather. Hashem Yimkom Damam. He is also in Bergen-Belsen was buried. This is on their wedding, before their wedding. And this is my grandfather, with my father, and the same yet before the war.
It's amazing that you have the picture survived.
Very few. So she was buried over there, and it took me a long time to find her because I discovered that I was born exactly 5 years on the day after the day she died, on the same Jewish date. And she was niftar on Chof Hei Iyar, and I was born on Chof Hei Iyar. So I always felt nobody had grandparents, obviously, neither did I, but I knew that this was. So I looked for her always, and then I found that she was buried in Nijmegen. It was very nice. I went there straight away. So that is that chapter. The Vandenberg family remained influential. They had people in the government. They had a minister of justice, of economics. But still, my father said that Europe is so soaked with Jewish blood that I have nothing to do there. I just wanted to leave. And in 1961, we left and came to Israel.
And how old were you at this time?
11. I was 11, yeah. So that's one story. My mother is another story altogether. My mother's family Lewkowicz, they came from Lomża in Poland. And because of economical trouble, they moved already before the war to Köln, to Germany. And she was born there. And then in 1931, when she was 3 years old, no, 32, all kinds of circumstances happened, and she was with step-parents, and they fled to Holland. And she was blonde and blue eyes. And when the war came, the step-parents kept her with her. And she went all the time to Austerfunten to get a spare for them. And in 1943 again, Austerfunten set his dog on her. Well, she came and she fled and made it out. But her step-parents said, we found a place to hide, but there's no place for you. And you have blonde hair and blue eyes, you can pass, as a non-Jew, and you're a girl. They gave her a bag of money. And they said, try to get to Switzerland. She was at the time 14 and a half years old. And so she set out, and she had to go to the bathroom, and she forgot her bag with money over there. So she had no choice, she had a map. And from Eastern Holland, from Nijmegen also, she had alone in Nazi Germany to find her way to Switzerland somehow. She was a very brave woman. This is her. This is with my father in 1952. So she started to make her way. You got it? She started to make her way. And she had to go to the woods, and at one point she was caught. She was 15 then, and they had all kinds of very, distasteful camps for girls that they would send to the soldiers. And it was such a camp that they put her in, and she realized where she was, and she said, I have to get out of here. And she had a friend there called Irene Beckman. I remember the name quite well because we spoke about these things. And one night when they thought it was safe, they escaped from this camp, and they were caught the same night. And they had to sign something, I forgot exactly what, but they knew that now they're gonna transport them immediately. And I said she was a brave woman. They escaped again the same night. They escaped again, and they made it. So somehow they got to she had to sleep in rotten trees to keep the dogs off her trail, and dreadful stories, terrible. And but she made it to the Swiss border. And she was terrified how to cross the Swiss border. The Swiss border was at the time locked. You couldn't get in or out. And they sent enough Jews back, as we all know. And so she said, I was there for so long, standing there, not knowing what to do, and I was davening, like, how do this? And she noticed that they noticed her. I mean, how long can you be hidden? And she needed to eat, and this is a young girl. And she was able to get out from the German side, and she sneaked in the Swiss side. She said that the German side just turned around on purpose. But she got in the Swiss side, and they said they threw her in jail as being a spy. So she was in jail for a while.
Even though she was only 15?
Yeah. So she was in jail for a while, but then they let her out, and then she went to the Jewish refugee camps over there, and there she had a great time. So that was her story. Which is, I think, remarkable by itself. I mean, I don't know how she did it. My father fled. He always said, he used to go eat in the restaurants of the Nazis. He said, they should be afraid of me, not me of them. He was nifter on his birthday, on his 83rd birthday, just a few days ago. Like a few years ago, but the Yehudit was just now. From the family, because of my father, I think, all 4 children of this marriage of my grandparents, they survived. Though not unharmed, they were deeply harmed, staying in Westerbork, staying in Bergen-Belsen for a long time. It was dreadful. But the family had a lot of strength, and they went through a lot of things. Like, I think my grandmother was one of 4 sisters of the Knurr family, Knurr, that were Schutzjuden from Germany, quite wealthy. And they married their 4 daughters to the 4 sons of Vandenberg.
Wow.
And that became really like a stronghold of power and money, and they lived in Rotterdam on the Heemraadsinghal, and it was a very well-known family up to this day. But now, because are you van die Vandenbergs? Yes. And it also gave them a lot of strength. And a few were able to flee to South Africa. I remember Tante Alida went to South Africa, but they had a very close contact with one another. My mother came out altogether hurt, deeply hurt. She married my father, about 12-year difference between them, and a lot of care and love, but everything she saw, the fact that she was left alone in such a crucial time and had to take care of herself, I think it hurt her heart forever. She was not a happy camper. She tried, but it was not. And my father came here, and I think the only time I saw him upset, really upset, is when in the Yom Kippur War, when things looked bad. And he said, in any case, whatever it is, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm staying right here. I'm not going to go to anything again. And he remarried over here and had 4 more children. I think that's more or less the Vandenberg story and the Lefkowitz story.
Can I just ask you, when they escaped to Switzerland,
yeah,
it was your mother, and was she accepted well into the Jewish accepted well into the Jewish community?
Yes, I think so. Well, she looked very Russian somehow. She looked blonde and round face. This is her also. This with after the birth of my sister. This is not long after the war. It was in 1949. Yeah. She was very beautiful, and the Russian Jews, when she came in, all thought that she was Russian, but she wasn't. Like my daughter Sarah, that you know quite well, also for years looked very Russian. Also the same face, blonde eyes, and blonde hair, and light hair, and blue eyes, green eyes. But she had a good community. She went there to a school, nursing school, to learn to be a nurse. And
in Switzerland?
In Switzerland, yeah.
In which city was she in? Did she?
I think in Montreux. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where she was.
And did she ever speak about Regis Sternberg, or did she?
No, she didn't. She didn't speak Regis. I myself, I'm quite in love with Regis Sternberg. What she did, it is incredible. What she did, it's what one person can do. But I think she might have been too young. Also, she was, when you went to what you went, and then you're in jail, and then you're being let out, and you're only 15 years old, and also the relationship with her step-parents that took her to Holland was not good, and they didn't. Let's don't talk nice things. But she came back to Holland and after the war, and it was not a nice. Things were not nice, and she when she was 17, she got engaged to my father just also to get out of the house, just to get into another, into another life. My father was kind and nice, and she wanted to get out of the place of step-parents, and her real family, obviously, they were all murdered.
And her step-parents, they were Jewish?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I know. She loved her stepfather. Sander, and I have a picture of him somewhere, and after he was niftar, which was quite quickly in 1951, I believe. After that, his wife, her stepmother, came to Eretz Yisrael. She was a chayfa over here. I visited her a few times, but my mother was not happy I did that, and I understand. I think these were days that were so hard on everybody. I think that you cannot blame a soul that went through things like all these people went through, no matter who it is. And it was so excruciating. You know, my father had to hide in and under. I told you that they're quite, the Vandenbergs are quite, you know, they're quite powerful, and he was hiding at one point by a tzaddik of a komer, of a priest in Holland. He's in Yad Vashem well known, and he was mitvakeach with him about Hashem, you know, and about Yeshu. He said, "It's nonsense, you know." And this is a person in hiding. He could have thrown him out any time. It was a tzaddik of a priest, really incredible. And but my father wasn't afraid of anybody. He didn't care less. It's out of the question. And he hid also by family in Grubbenvorst. And we went after the war many times out of gratitude. And there were Van Rens, the family was called.
And non-Jewish family?
Yeah. So
and you met them?
Yes, we played there. I met them. I remember playing over there. And where did they live? In the south of Holland. In the south of Holland, in Limburg, I have to remember the name of in Grubbenvorst.
And were they made righteous Gentiles? Were they?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I should check that out, but I was sure my father did that. I have no doubt about it. He wouldn't do that.
Because it was a very, somebody who hid Yidden, who hid Jews.
Yeah.
Not only they were killed, but their whole families were killed.
Oh yeah. Well,
it was a tremendous thing to do, to hide.
Yeah, I know. I know at one point somebody betrayed them, and they told my father to start swimming because they're not far from a river. And he and another Jew who was hidden over there, they swam over the river. I think it was the Maas, and his friend got shot and killed. And my father kept on swimming and made it to the other side. Yeah. By the way, about this Putkamer, there's also Putkamer. He after not too long ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, suddenly there was a cry from in Holland, like all the money that Putkamer got, where did it go? Of course, he took a lot of it and went to the Nazis. And somebody started a claim, and so I knew about it, and I put in my claim, and I got like a little bit of money. I mean, nothing to what the real worth was, but that's the way it was. I mean, my father gave them, maybe there were how many people over there? I didn't don't have to count them because he counted per head, per Jew. I find it so distasteful and disgusting that I don't even want to make the cheshbon, but it was disgraceful, terrible. Yeah.
And Yehudit, you have other papers?
Yeah, I have here is, let me see. Yeah, this is where the Dutch, the city of The Hague, my grandparents, they had to leave their home in Rotterdam, their nice home, and they moved to The Hague. And here it says that in 19th of July, 1943, they were removed to Westerbork.
These are the original documents?
The originals, yes.
It was very official, they did.
Oh yeah. And these are the official documents from the same, you call that, area,
the city.
Weisberg, The Hague, about their death. So this is the death that Simon van den Berg, I made a mistake with the age, but only this is death certificate.
And what year was that in?
That was in 45. He was in the beginning of 1945, a few months before the liberation. I was 57. Here's my grandmother in Tröbitz.
And what year was with your grandmother? 45.
Wow. else over here. Yeah, this is the list of people that were of our family, most of them, in Bergen-Belsen. Not all of them, but some of them are of our family. I know that the American Institute of the Holocaust, they have a whole list of people who were in the train of Teubitz. This is an article about the lost transport. It's very worthwhile. You can have it if you want to. It's very interesting. There should be more people over there. And this is Daniel Vandenberg, the one who started, the brother of Simon. He was the older brother. Simon started with the butter and ended with Unilever, and Daniel started with fabrics, and he made the whole in the city of Oss, and the whole city of Oss was really centered around economically around this enterprise, which was very, very big. Baruch Hashem, he was long before the war, and he died a normal death, which is for a Jew is a nice thing to know. I think that is about it. This is the laissez-passer of my father. In September, he started out in Belgium and France and needed to also another laissez-passer for Germany, which was more difficult at the time. Because it was very hard to know where everybody was. I mean, you had to find everybody. So he was looking.
And did your father and mother, did they speak a lot to you about the war? About the experiences during the Shoah?
Yes, very much so. I know that my father, kids get bedtime stories. Our bedtime stories were always about how he went from here and went to there and fled from here, and every encounter he had. He wanted us to know. My mother, I don't know, she was too hurt for that. So now and then she spoke about it. But I think she was so shocked by all the horrific things that she saw and experienced that she had a very hard time with it.
And can I just ask, their connection to Holland, because a lot of Jews in Holland actually were transferred and many died.
Yeah.
Did they have a positive feeling towards the Dutch, or it's a very hard question because they were good, there were many righteous Gentiles in Holland, but a lot were actually informed on and were actually transferred and transported to the camps.
Holland had, together with Poland, the highest number of killed Jewish people in Europe. And even though there was some solidarity, like there was the strike in 1941 in Amsterdam because of the way the Nazis treated the Jews, and there were definitely people who wanted to help and did help. There were many traitors on them, very many traitors who were happy for a very little amount of money to say, hey, he's hiding, or there somebody's hiding. I myself wrote an article. Minister Mine found it yesterday. I wrote it for there's a website called Joods NL, Jewish NL. And it's called Gratitude. And I remember I wrote it. There were many responses to it because I said, "Do you also have this feeling that you have to be grateful that you were able to live peacefully in Holland? My generation was peaceful." And no, we're not grateful to Holland. Holland had many things that are not very nice. And the Jews have brought Holland tremendous wealth, all the connections with the Portuguese, with the Jews, they don't drink and they don't do, you have today's immigrants, the Jews, they do, they don't take. And especially the Vandenberg family and the Knoor family, they did things. And so they brought Holland a lot of wealth. The little city of Oss did not have a big industry until my great-grandfather came. And now it's sold. I went there a few years ago, They had to break the factory down. It was all gone by now, and so on there they built, I think, at least one whole schona and another schona in the neighborhood, like housing and other things. It was a very large source of parnassah for the city of Oz. But my father was happy to leave. Only thing he missed was the coffee. Yeah.
And your mother, she passed away very young.
66, yeah. I think it has everything to do with her life. She, so some people they have a talent for being happy, and if that talent is being compromised by events, then such a happy person, what is he going to do with that? Yeah. It's very hard to. She was left an orphan, total orphan. She was thrown out at the critical time of her life. Her marriage didn't go well because my father wanted to rebuild the Vandenberg family. He wanted a lot of children. He wanted 4 sons to replace, and my mother just wanted to have a good time. Not in a bad sense of the word, but she wanted to finally. She was so young, and when everything happened, and she didn't want to have any worries. She wanted now to live, and I understand her so well. And my father, I also got a story about him. He couldn't sit still. He couldn't unwind. I think that was his response to everything that happened. He was like a rider on a horse that couldn't stop. He was very active in Israel also. But my mother wanted to sit down. And that doesn't go well together. But both very, very sweet people. And I wish I could redo history and give them a better life also together. But of course I cannot. I think they were great people, and Rachmanis on everybody. And all these many people have to suffer so much.
And can I ask you, did your parents, they retain their emunah, their faith?
This grandfather was a very frum person, went to shul. My father didn't come out with that kind of emunah anymore. He did not. We of course fasted on Yom Kippur, and there was a Seder, but there was not this. My father was hurt in that sense of the word very much, and my mother also. And as a matter of fact, they were in the family of those who survived Westerbork and Bergen-Belsen. There was one of his sisters who remarried, of course, a Jew, and she had 4 boys and a daughter. And I remember I must have been very small, and we came there, and she was giving them a bath, and we were somehow, there also. And so my father said, "That kid didn't have a bris." And she says, "No, we don't. He should never know that he's Jewish. Nothing." And he was so angry. I've hardly ever seen him angry. He was furious. How can you do that? But that was one of the outcome of the. Yeah.
And do you still have a connection with that part of the family?
No, not so much. We left to Israel, and the mentality. First of all, the mentality of my father and the rest of his family is very different. Not too long ago, I discovered my grandmother after all these years in Nijmegen, and the grave there, and I went there. I only every year outside, the last 3-4 years I went there, and I davened over there and davened for everybody over there. And Mila Shamayim, suddenly, cousins of mine from the other brothers and sisters, they visited the cemetery, and then they heard, "Oh, this Yehudit has been here, really?" And there was an email. And now my father and their father had quite a, what do you call that? They were not on good terms, because my father said that they ruined the factory with mismanagement. I'm not going to what we have. And but there is a Dutch mentality that is, if you don't make too much noise as a Jew, you can live like everybody else. Don't stand out.
You don't rock the boat.
Don't rock that. And my father rocks the boat. no matter where boat, in any boat he is. If he thinks it should be like this, he will do it, and he will not accept. But the others in the family, they don't want to rock the boat. So when I came there, we had a meeting, and I'm very distressed about that because we spoke. We spoke about the war and about our parents, and I said that if you're not religious, but you have the fact that your family was murdered because they were Jews, I think you have the moral responsibility to try to find out why. I mean, if you had been there at the time, you also would have been killed. You want to know why. There's some connection, and they were very angry with me. They didn't like that, and because it's rocking their boat. They got all a very good remuneration from the factory, and plenty of money over there, but they're not working. They live like everybody else, and they want status in Dutch society, which they have, and they want peace. They don't.
And are they at all connected to the Jewish community? Or
no, one of them even married a kid over in the church. No.
It's so sad to have survived the war.
Dreadful, yes. But
to survive and then to
they
totally intermarry and assimilate.
Awful. There's nothing left. So the only thing I could do, I brought Sforim with me, like readable, not difficult, so they could look like stories and this and that. So maybe they can, there's this, I forgot who said it, that one of the Mefolshim said, it was a Rebbe in the Hasidic Rebbes, he said, why does it say in Shema something talking about Al Levavcha, right? Or when Bilevavcha? He said, maybe your heart will open one day and it will fall in.
That's true.
So that's what I hope with them.
Maybe one day the children will rediscover their roots, and it happens. It actually happens.
I hope so. For the rest, the meeting was dreadful, and I'm not happy with it at all. It's a pity.
And you don't get any more emails or communication?
No, minimal. No, minimal. They feel that anybody who is religious is a fool. Because that's how you defend yourself. It's a mechayev, if you see somebody that in your heart he's right, but you don't want to, it's a problem. It's mechayev, so they don't want that.
And Yehudit, I just want to ask you, looking back, were you happy that your father, instead of giving you bedtime stories, spoke about his experiences? Looking back, do you think there was a positive thing?
Yeah, I'm very much a realist, no matter what happens. And
it didn't traumatize you growing up, knowing that you're carrying this tremendous burden of your family? Or
look, we had no stories from Auschwitz. Okay, we did not have any of that. What we had was bad enough. But we were always separate. There were a number of Jewish kids in Oss, where I grew up, and we always played separate. We were a separate group in the school. We were allowed not to come on Saturdays to school. We were allowed to keep away from the Yontif and whatever. But for me, it was a sense of reality. I don't like dishonesty, and if a person is growing up when the facts are being hidden, he's growing up in a lie. And that I wouldn't have appreciated. I like truthfulness. But there was a lot of many things being unsaid. I wrote a story about that also. About we had Jewish neighbors, and sometimes they would come and we would come, and we would sit and we talked about the weather and about political climate a little bit maybe, but they were really talking about. Do you remember Tante Ruth who passed away? Do you remember how everything that was being said was not being said? There was so an undercurrent of such things being hidden, and you could almost touch it. And that was a reality too. We all knew. Every kid knew, conscious or subconscious. But I knew. I could tell. I could tell by the faces, by the voices, by the pauses, by what not being said, yes being said. But no, I appreciate both my parents very much. Who they raised us with truth, honesty, no matter what it was. I believe that's the best value in life, and the only value in life.
Wow. And if I could ask you, and I know this is maybe a bit difficult, but it's very important. What message would you give? You know, having heard and having been as a second generation Holocaust survivor, what would you give to the next following generations? What advice could you give? Or
I can say two things. Though again, I don't remember who said it, but there was in Auschwitz. There were at one point they were in the barracks, and there were a number of not from Jews, and they were talking between them, and they wanted to commit suicide. Yes, what do we have to expect? No. And not far away was a Jewish doctor who heard them, and he said, maybe the question is not what you can expect, maybe what Hashem is expecting from you at this moment. And I think that is a very important statement, because for all of us, what is Hashem expecting from us in our lives? Everybody's getting dealt blows, everybody's getting hard time, that's what we're here for. But how do you deal with it? I think that is the most important thing that I would say. I don't hold by self-pity. I think it's not in place. I mean, I thought a long time about how, you know, how can Hashem, everybody's question, how can Hashem let it happen? You have books like Holocaust and Halacha, and you see the questions being asked, and my goodness, what a nation. Have you read that book? And,
it was Rabbi Oshri in the Kovno Ghetto.
Yeah, no, that's just incredible. I mean, so, and I was thinking about it very much, you know, and, you know, block number 10 experiments. How do you, I had to report on when the twins were being interviewed for court, and then a friend said, Yehudit, remember, Hashem was also in block 10. And I think it's what we do. We have to know that life is not something that happened by its own. There is a balabais. There is somebody who is managing this world. And I had my own share of tragedies, obviously. And I can only say, the moment I understand how the sun keeps being so hot, I'll have an opinion. For the rest, it's not relevant. What I know for my little corner, for my little thing, is completely not relevant. You know, I should try to do my best to do what I'm expected to do, and that's it.
Well, I think you've been amazing, and I just want to thank you. But it's very, very special what you said, and if I can just. So, Yehudit, you've been a patient for many years, you and your family, and it's been the greatest honor. And really, just hearing your story and about your parents, I cannot thank you enough. It's so important, and it's so special that you've relearned, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I'm so grateful, and it's been an honor and a privilege, and you should just have Mazel Brocha and all of Hashem's blessings, and your message should go out there, because it's very profound. And thank you so much, Yehudit. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. You've been both a friend, and I know our dentist for so long, but with my husband still, and my son, and you've been amazing. And
it's very kind of you.
Yeah.
But really, thank you very, very much. And your parents, they're very proud of you. And they really are. And I think you've been a shining example. And it's wonderful to see how you remember, your testimony to who your parents were.
I know. I think they were very beautiful people, and I'm happy with that. I'm proud of that. Well, I want to do what's expected of me in the best possible way.
Yehudit, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.